Of all the pests and diseases endemic to Australia, one of the greatest biosecurity threats to vineyards is grape phylloxera. This tiny insect destroys grapevines by feeding on its roots. Once vines are infected, they will usually die within 6 years. Native to North America, phylloxera spread to Europe and then Australia during the latter part of the 19th century, decimating vineyards caught in its path. Phylloxera can be transmitted in grapevine material and grape products, or other things that come into contact with grapevine material, such as vineyard soil, and therefore can be carried on agricultural equipment, machinery, and clothing worn by contract crews. In spite of the obvious threat to our businesses, do wine grape growers like me really care about best practice phylloxera management? To find an answer to this, Agriculture Victoria undertook a social research project in 2018. The research looked into attitudes of Victorian wine grape growers concerning their on-farm biosecurity and phylloxera management practices. I know what biosecurity is. It's that TV show. Not exactly. Depending on the attitudes of the growers and managers to best practice on-farm phylloxera management, their biosecurity actions can play a critical role in preventing the spread of phylloxera and other biosecurity risks that are never far away. So, what are the attitudes that determine whether or not growers either adopt or reject best practice on-farm phylloxera management? Resignation. The social research showed this was the most common attitude of larger operators, particularly those located within the Maroondah phylloxera infested zone of the Yarra Valley. Many growers from the Yarra Valley region who participated in the research believed there was little they could do to stop the spread of phylloxera, despite most, if not all, implementing best practice. Listen, most of us believe that best practice biosecurity strategies are worthwhile doing to prevent the spread of phylloxera. But let's be realistic. Now, I'll bet you London to a brick that the insect will spread due to circumstances growers like me find almost impossible to control. You know, we can't always be sure about hygiene standards when you've got a heap of movement of crews and machinery between properties. There are a lot of time and cost pressures on us, especially at harvest. He's got a point. For many growers, other issues like making a profit had shifted the focus away from best practice phylloxera management. According to the McKenna report, profitability is the most fundamental issue impacting the majority of businesses in the Victorian wine industry. Growers are regarded as the most vulnerable in the industry in terms of profitability. Complacency. The research showed how several growers believed they were somehow immune to phylloxera infesting their properties. Chill out. I'm growing my grapes on sandy soils. I have my own harvesting equipment. I don't let anyone come onto the property unless I know about it. And I've been using the same contract crew for years. Besides, I reckon I'm safe because my property is located in a phylloxera exclusion zone. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied that I've done enough. No worries, mate. Indifference. There were many commercial growers in the King Valley, Rutherglen, Sunraysia and Yarra Valley regions who believed that phylloxera was a non-issue. If you want to beat the threat of phylloxera, just replant on resistant rootstocks. Best practice biosecurity. I've got other things to worry about, you know. Have you heard about climate change? Looked out the window recently? Where's the rain they promised? Resignation, complacency and indifference. These attitudes commonly translated into on-farm biosecurity practices or behaviours that were inconsistently applied across the state. Many growers were thorough with their on-farm practices, but some weren't. The results of the social research also hinted at something else happening invisibly in the background, something which might go some way to explaining the cause of these inconsistent practices. The management of phylloxera movement can be likened to a complex system. Changing attitudes and growers' behaviours asks us to understand this complexity. What's a complex system? Sounds complicated. Let's not mix up these two terms. In a complicated situation, at least one clear answer exists. In a complex setting, however, straightforward answers can't be easily found. Before we go on, let's look at some background into this topic. Let's use the analogy of a sports car and a rainforest. Sports cars are complicated machines, but an expert mechanic with a set of instructions can take one part and reassemble it without changing a thing. The car is static, and the whole is the sum of its parts. The rainforest, on the other hand, is in constant flux. Species become extinct, new species appear, weather patterns change. The whole is far more than the sum of its parts. What this is saying is, a complex system is more like an elaborate web, rather than a straightforward assembly line of sports car. According to the Sinefin framework for complex problem solving developed by David J. Snowden in 1999, a complex system involves large numbers of interacting elements. The system is dynamic, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Clear solutions can't be imposed, rather they must arise from the circumstances at hand. That means we can't easily forecast or predict what will happen. The Sinefin framework asks us to accept that every complex situation is different and requires a unique approach to decision making. According to Snowden, many environmental situations fall into the complex category of problem solving. Let's see if this model for problem solving could apply to best practice phylloxera management. In 2016, an analysis was undertaken by Agriculture Victoria to identify the potential risk pathways for the spread of phylloxera between properties within the phylloxera infested zone of the Yarra Valley. The analysis identified 23 risk pathways for the movement of phylloxera onto a vineyard. These included machinery, people, feral animals, and tourists. To mitigate each risk pathway, growers are directed to the National Phylloxera Management Protocols, which contain a prescribed set of disinfestation standards that, if applied to affected host material, will prevent the movement of phylloxera. A set of instructions. Here they are. Just do it, right? The protocols work, but the approach is one way and straightforward. They are telling growers what the problem is, and they are saying that the solution to phylloxera management lies with them taking action using the protocols. But phylloxera management has shifted to the realm of the complex. Phylloxera manifests itself as several genotypes. It lives in many different soil types, is transferred by multiple pathways, has a long litany of protocols to mitigate its risk of transference, and its management is influenced by human interaction and growers' attitudes. What are you saying? I'm a bit confused. It suggests that growers like you are being asked to take a solution for a complicated problem, that is, a clear set of standard instructions, the national protocol, and apply it to a complex environmental situation like a rainforest. That requires a unique and specific approach. Growers are not assembling a production line Ferrari. They're dealing with the web-like complexity of nature. The protocols can stop the spread of phylloxera, there's not much doubt about that, but the long-term solution for phylloxera management also needs to take into account growers, their attitudes and their circumstances, and how these affect the application of the protocols. Maybe the current approach to phylloxera management is not enough to ultimately stop its spread. A simple set of instructions, the national protocol, only provides a part of the solution. Competing interests for growers' time and financial resources, climate change, access to water, The struggle to stay profitable, in turn, give rise to feelings of resignation, which may explain the inconsistencies in the application of best practice phylloxera management. The social research suggests the real problem isn't preventing the movement of phylloxera, but maybe it's our way of looking at the problem for solving it. Do growers care about containing the spread of phylloxera or biosecurity? We do. We really do care. But the list of problems we often face on a daily basis can mean that phylloxera management falls off the radar a little. Now, I do my best with the resources I've got and I hope that's enough. The social research suggests we need a better suite of tools to help growers, both commercial and non-commercial, better manage a complex biosecurity system for the containment of phylloxera. Phylloxera has been contained to northeastern Victoria and the Yarra Valley, so let's keep it there. The social research tells us it's time we look at preventing the future movement of phylloxera through a wider lens. Thanks for listening.
Hello, and thank you for watching this summary of the social research findings into the attitudes displayed by Victorian wine grape growers to good practice biosecurity measures on farm. The social research is a key component of the Tackling Phylloxera program, a Victorian government initiative that is taking a holistic approach to the long-term management of phylloxera. The social research was conducted with many growers across Victoria. It shows there is no one clear-cut reason for why phylloxera spreads. There's no one silver bullet for containing its spread. However, the research did strongly indicate that good practice biosecurity measures are the best form of insurance for a wine grape growing business. They can help to protect the grower's most important asset, their vines. At the same time, good practice biosecurity can help to enhance a grape grower's reputation in the business. When a grower arrives at that fork in the road, that point where they need to evaluate their business management planning, research shows good practice biosecurity standards can deliver a competitive edge in tough trading markets, both in Australia and internationally. When considering your biosecurity decisions, a good practice management strategy can not only minimise the risk of phylloxera spreading, but can also facilitate trade by demonstrating a grower's commitment to best practice hygiene standards on their property. For every task that has a biosecurity implication, growers can prepare themselves using important information developed by their own industry that's found in the National Phylloxera Management Protocol on how you can secure your farm and secure your future against the spread of phylloxera. Through the Tackling Phylloxera program, Agriculture Victoria is putting in place a long-term plan for phylloxera containment involving new diagnostic tools and online information resources that will help growers stop the spread of phylloxera and enhance Victoria's reputation as a preferred supplier of wine grapes, which will contribute to growth and employment in rural and regional communities. Thank you for watching. For more information, go to agriculture.vic.gov.au/tackling phylloxera.